Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron. It is the player ratings. Everton 1, Crystal Palace 0 at Goodison Park this evening. Everton progress into the fourth round of the FA Cup, where they will face Luton Town at Goodison Park in 10 days time. Not a great game of football that tonight. Not the most entertaining game of football we've ever watched, and certainly not the best Everton performance we've ever seen, but a win nonetheless. And given we haven't won a game for a month now, and given we've had some really frustrating defeats and some really frustrating moments in those games, it felt good to just be back to winning ways again tonight. It felt good to be walking home from Goodison Park with a smile on my face because Everton have won. As I said, it wasn't the greatest game whatsoever, and ultimately it was decided by a little bit of class from Andre Gomez. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you win 5-0 and you're absolutely unbelievable, or whether you win 1-0 and, a moment of quality has gotten you through. As long as you win the game of football, that's all that matters, and that is exactly what Everton have done today. Winning was the most important thing today. Results before performance, and ultimately, as I said, not only have we needed that win to progress into the next round, but we've also needed that win in order to get over this mini dip in form that we've been in over the last few weeks or so in the Premier League, as well obviously as in the cup competitions. Thrown out of the Carabao Cup, a draw in the game prior to this one in the FA Cup. So it was all about getting back to winning ways, and that is exactly what we did, even if we weren't great, and even if it was minus 76 outside today, and I am still absolutely freezing. I've been home for an hour now, and I've still not warmed up in the slightest. Anyway, let's get into the player ratings. We have done the instant match reaction. If you want to go and check that out, it is up on the channel now. Go and check that out after this video. This is the player ratings. It's the show where we give every single player who stepped on that pitch in an Everton shirt today a rating between 1 and 10. 1 obviously being absolutely horrific, and 10 being absolutely fantastic. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. João Virginia then in goal. Wasn't quite sure the manager would go with João Virginia. Obviously went with him in the reverse fixture, but Jordan Pickford was back in goal last weekend when we played Aston Villa at Goodison Park, and I just felt with the severity of this game and with the real need for Everton to go out and win it, I just felt like he put Jordan Pickford back in. He didn't. He stuck with João Virginia, and you know what? Fair play to João Virginia. He was absolutely fantastic today. I think he's just won man of the match on Everton's website, which shows you just how appreciative of his performance we are as fans. But he was brilliant today. He didn't have an awful lot to do. As I said, it was a pretty dull game of football. I don't think Crystal Palace offered much in it whatsoever. I don't think Everton offered much either, to be fair. But he certainly didn't have a massive amount to do. But what he had to do was stay aware. What he had to do was keep himself concentrated and make sure that if, a situation arises and he needs to be accounted for, then he stands up and is accounted for. And whilst not a lot happened in the game, the most important thing was that he was there in that last 5 minutes to see us through, and he made a couple of huge saves. One where, as I've said in the instant match reaction, it's very Jordan Pickford-esque. He comes out, he makes himself big, and he gets in front of it and he makes the save. And then another couple just before the end where the ball's bouncing around a little bit in the box, and he manages to get over and he manages to to get a hold of it. So I'm actually going to give him an 8.5 out of 10 today. As I said, I don't think he had a massive amount to do, but ultimately, when he was called upon, he stepped up, and he was accounted for, and he made a couple of big saves, a big moments in the game as well. It would have been an absolute disaster had Crystal Palace have scored in that last 5 or 10 minutes of the game. Not only because it would have meant we'd have had to go to extra time, but it would have meant we'd have all been sat in the freezing cold for an extra half an hour, 45 minutes as well. So, really solid performance. Good to see. Good to see that our backup goalkeeper, as much as we don't see him an awful lot because obviously of the importance of Jordan Pickford in this Everton side. It's very difficult when you've got a goalkeeper who is as good and as important as Jordan Pickford. It's very difficult to then be a number 2 or a number 3 goalkeeper, because more often than not, You're not even getting opportunities in the cup games because, the goalkeeper, the number one, who is Jordan in this example, is so important that even in the majority of cup games, he's playing. So it's difficult for João Virginia being the number two. He's been at the football club for a long time, of course, and he's been out on loan. He's come back. We've very rarely seen him in an Everton shirt during his time at the football club. But I think over these last two games, he's done himself proud, and I think today he's probably earned himself the opportunity to play in the game against Luton as well. However, who knows what decision will be made on that day. But yeah, good performance, really solid performance. I'm going to give him an 8.5. Right back then, Nathan Patterson. I'm actually going to give Nathan a 8. I thought he was really good today. Obviously, he's come under a lot of criticism of late for his performances, and he's been very much in and out the team over the course of the last few months or so. We've just heard from the manager that both Seamus Coleman and Abdoulaye Doucouré have picked up hamstring injuries, which is the reason as to why they were unavailable tonight. And if that is the case, then it probably means there will be a lot more opportunities for Nathan Patterson in the coming weeks. Obviously, we know Ashley Young is back on the grass, but still not available to be a part of a matchday squad. And Nathan, as I said, he's had a little bit of an up and down time at Everton Football Club so far, and specifically this season. He's had games where he's looked promising, and then he's had other games where he's looked like he's been nowhere near the level. And obviously, Seamus has come in, and Ashley Young's been in there at times as well. But I thought today he was absolutely fantastic. I thought he was first to every ball. I thought defensively he was strong. He was strong in the tackle. He was physical. He was demanding. He wasn't shying away from anything. He wasn't backing away from anything. Every header, pardon me, that he needed to get up and win, he got up and he at least gave it a good go. He battled, he fought his way through. He kept Eze extremely quiet for the time that he was on the pitch as well. So I think Nathan deserves a huge amount of credit, because when he doesn't put that type of performance in, we're all quick to sit here and criticise him and say, oh, he's not good enough, or he needs taken out, or we need Seamus back in the team, etc. Whereas I thought today he was really solid. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Crystal Palace offered an awful lot, and I don't think Crystal Palace caused us a massive amount of threat, so I don't think he was hugely under pressure, and maybe that's where his game needs to improve, is in those moments where he is under pressure, because I think when he's not under pressure, he's relatively solid more often than not. I think it's the times when he's under pressure where he seems to struggle a little bit, but I thought he put in a really solid shift today, and I think he deserves credit for it. Into the centre halves then, James Tarkowski, gonna give him a 7.5. Yeah, really solid. I've said this time and time again, this is the type of performance you get from James Tarkowski. I feel like you could probably, at the end of a season, clip up all of my player ratings, clips of me giving James Tarkowski a rating, and then talking about his performance for the next minute or so after. I feel like if you clipped all of them up at the end of a season, I'd pretty much be saying the same thing every single week. And no, that's not because I'm repetitive and I just say the same things. That's because more often than not, James Tarkowski puts in a solid 7, 8 out of 10 performance. And I've said this once, I've said it a million times. James Tarkowski is exactly the type of player you need at your football club. Somebody that won't always be a 10, won't always be an absolutely unbelievable performance, but he also will very ever really be under a 4, 5 or 6. He is always 7, 8 out of 10. His poor games, he might be a 6.5. His great games, he might be an 8.5. But he's always consistent. And again today, he was consistent. Once again, similar with Pato, he didn't have an awful lot to do. There wasn't a mass amount of defending he had to do. A couple of moments towards the end of the game when it got a little bit scrappy and it got a little bit messy in the box, but for the most part, he didn't have an awful lot to do whatsoever, but he still put in a good performance. He was still solid. He was still getting up and winning things in the air. He was still pushing forward and trying to get the game going and trying to get Everton attacking. And as I said, all of the defensive work he had to do when Mateta come on, him and Brantwaite dealt with him brilliantly. I didn't even know Edouard was on the pitch. to be honest with you, until the board went up and his name was called out to be taken off, I completely forgot he was on the pitch. So yeah, I'm gonna give him a 7.5. Brandwaite next to him, I'm gonna give him a 7.5 as well. Similarly, again, he's only young, Jared, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself, and I don't want to get too excited too quickly. And I know that there's a huge possibility that come the next 12 months, he may not be at Everton Football Club anyway. But he very much reminds me of James Tarkowski in the way that he also is a 7, 8 out of 10 every single week. He had a couple of moments today where his passing was a little bit off and his decision making from the ball dropping out the air was a little bit off, but he's young, he's going to learn, and he's not always going to make the right decision. He's not always going to have made the right judgment call in those moments. But defensively on the floor, I mean, Mateta come on with 20-25 minutes to go with probably the main objective to try and get at him and try and expose his inexperience, but it's impossible to expose his inexperience because Jared Brandwaite might be a 21, 22-year-old centre-half who's played very minimal Premier League football, but he plays like somebody that's been in this league for 10, 15 years, consistently winning titles. He's so good, he's so calm, he's so consistent, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I'm not comparing the two, but something I often hear about Jude Bellingham at Real Madrid is that it's baffling how he has played such little football because he plays like somebody that has been playing at the highest level for over a decade and won everything at the highest level. He's just that cool and calm and composed, and he's that professional on the pitch. That is what Jared Brandwaite reminds me of. I don't look at Jared Brandwaite and think, you are a young up-and-coming centre-half with a lot of talent, but you can tell you're a young up-and-coming centre-half. Sometimes I have to remind myself that he's still, 22 years old or 23 years old, however he is, because of how good he is. It's not like he puts in performances where you go, oh, he wasn't great today, but he's a kid, he's learning his trade, etc., etc. Very, very, very rarely does he put a poor performance in. More often than not, you're looking thinking, wow, he is exceptional. And again today, although he didn't have an awful lot to do when he was called upon, he was brilliant. So yeah, I'm gonna give him a 7.5 as well. Mykolenko on the other side, then I'm gonna give Mykolenko an 8 as well. This lad just gets better and better as the weeks go on, doesn't he? I spoke before in the instant match reaction about how impressed I've been with Vitaly Mykolenko this season and how he's very rarely put a foot wrong, even in the games where Everton haven't particularly played well or have lost in. It's not been down to Vitaly Mykolenko. Even in those games, he's been the best Everton player on the pitch. And again today, I thought he was exceptional. I thought he was absolutely exceptional. His movements, we've just spoken in the instant match reaction about his ability to just step in front of a forward or step in front of a player before they reach the ball, not give a foul away, not make contact, not commit, but just take that one extra step just to sort of to leave that space between the ball and the attacker. And I think he did it a couple of times again today. And we saw him throw his body on the line to block a Matty Cash shot on Sunday, and we saw him do something very, very similar today. He threw himself at a challenge, and if he doesn't make the challenge, the Crystal Palace player gets pretty much a tap-in from 6-7 yards out, but he doesn't. He throws himself in front of it, completely confuses the situation, and allows João Virginia to come out and collect it. And it was an absolutely excellent piece of defending, and his defensive work is getting better and better and better week in, week out, and he deserves a huge, huge amount of credit as well. Into the midfield then, Amadou Onana. I'm going to give Amadou a 7.5 out of 10 as well. Thought he was really solid today. Thought he was involved a lot. Thought he was good winning the ball in the air. Thought he was good on the ball as well. Think that the both of them had a real clever partnership today. Him and James Garner, in where when Everton didn't have the ball, James Garner was the prominent midfielder, getting at Palace players, trying to win the ball back, putting them under pressure, trying to break down their attacks. But when we had the ball, it was Onana who was the prominent midfield player. He was the one who was on the ball. He was the one trying to spray the passes, trying to make the moves, trying to create space for players. And I thought he was really, really solid today. I thought he put in a really good performance. James Garner next to him then, I'm going to give him the same 7.5. I thought he put in a really solid performance as well. Every time we don't have the ball, James Garner seems to be the first Everton player attacking whoever it is that has got the ball. And in a game like today, where you've got two teams who both look like they didn't really want to be there and they preferred to just get the game done and move on, you need a player that is going to do that, because he immediately puts pressure on the opposition players. And if the opposition players are already not really given that much in the game, then you're going to benefit from having somebody that's on their toes as soon as they've got the ball. So yeah, I thought they both had a really, really clever partnership there today. Andre Gomez then got the goal, of course. I'm going to give him... I'll give him a 7.5 as well. Listen, the goal is absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a moment of quality. It's a moment of class. It's a moment of magic that I'm not quite sure there was any other player on that pitch wearing an Everton shirt or wearing a Palace shirt that would have been able to do that. It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. It was like a goal that you would see scored on FIFA or something. You know, a curled shot in off the post. It was absolutely brilliant. And like I said in the instant match reaction, I don't think anybody has ever doubted Andre Gomez's quality or Andre Gomez's technical ability or Andre Gomez's ability to, ping a ball 80 yards and land it within exactly where he says he's going to land it, or put a free kick into the back of the net in a situation like today. It's more about his how quick he is or how quick he isn't, more to the point, and the fact that in the Premier League at this level you need to be absolutely on it like that constantly, and I'm just not quite sure Andre Gomez's style of play fits the Premier League, and I think today, his goal is absolutely fantastic, and I'm not going to take anything away from that, but his general performance, he wasn't hugely involved. He had moments, as I said, on the ball. I think Andre Gomez is always fairly solid. I think his passing is usually fairly solid. His movement with it is he's clever. He's very clever, Andre Gomez. As I've said numerous times, in other leagues in this world, he would be absolutely unbelievable. I'm just not quite sure off the ball he's quick enough to keep up with it. But ultimately, he scored the goal. So in fact, I'll give him an 8 because he scored the goal that's won us the game today, and it was an absolutely brilliant free kick, and I made up for him. And I think the big positive to say about Andre Gomez is that if he is an Everton player come the end of this month, he's somebody that we can utilise between now and the end of the season, because he's got that quality and he's got that technical ability. He's not just a poor player who's going to fill a space on the bench. He mightn't necessarily be ideal because of the fact that he's just not quite quick enough to keep up with the play, but he has definitely got the technical ability to create opportunities, and I think it's probably fair to say, technically, he's probably the best player at the football club. Technically. I'm not saying he is the best player at the football club, but technically in his ability, I'm not quite sure there's anybody that is as good as Andre Gomez, and that is up for debate. I implore one of you watching to let me know your opinions on that and who you genuinely think is technically on the ball better than Andre Gomez. Again, I understand it's not just about that. He's got to be quicker. He scored the winning goal today, and what an absolute beauty it was as well. Onto the wingers then. Jack Harrison, give him a 3. And that's me being generous, to be honest with you, because we've won a game of football and I'm starting to warm up, so I'm starting to feel a little bit happier. Yeah, just poor today, and I think both wingers were poor as well, and we'll get on to Dwight McNeil, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I know every time I say it, people say, oh yeah, but look at the stats and look at the involvement and this, that and the other, but I don't know whether it's just me. I'm just not seeing it with Jack at the moment. I'm just not seeing it. I know he works hard. I know he puts himself about. I know he's constantly running at players. I know it's not a laziness. It's not a lack of effort. I know he's somebody that gives 100% every time he's on the pitch. I get that. And I know he's got quality there. And he's got ability. And he's clearly got something. But I just don't think he shows it consistently enough. I know he can put a good ball into the box. I know he can take a man on. I know he's capable of curling one in. But he doesn't do that as often as he runs into defenders. And unfortunately today, it was just another case of him picking the ball up, running into somebody, losing it, and then, possession is back with Crystal Palace. Done it a couple of times. Couple of times he did it, and again, maybe he just had the real off day today, and maybe I'm just not seeing it in other games. But I just want more from him, because I know he can give more. I know he's quick. I know he can beat a man. I know he's got technical ability. I know he can put a ball in. So I just want to see that more often than I see him picking it up, running into somebody, and losing possession, because it feels to me that we're seeing that far too often as opposed to the quality. So yeah, he's getting a free. Dwight McNeil on the other side, he's getting a free as well. Listen, I can't sit here and slag one off and defend the other. Dwight McNeil was horrendous today. He done the same thing. He just kept picking the ball up and kept trying to. I think he kept trying to meg their right back or right winger or whoever it was. But every time he got the ball, and he done it 2 or 3 times in the second half, and it very nearly caused us an issue as well, where he had it, and instead of just lumping it up or coming inside or trying to curl it round, he tried to meg the player 2 or 3 times, and every time the defender just went nope, nope, and it bounced off his legs, and the Palace player was then attacking. And as I said, the ball got put in the box a couple of times, and it would have only taken one of the Palace players to run off one of our defenders, and it would have been a goal. And that for me was really, really poor. Really, really poor. I thought they were both poor, so they're both getting a free. And then Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front. I'm going to give Dom I'll give him a 7. I thought he worked hard. I thought he put himself about. I thought he battled. I thought, even though he wasn't hugely involved, again, I think that was more of a fault of the players that were around him. I don't think Gomez offered him enough. I don't think either winger offered him enough either. But I thought his general hold-up play, I thought his ability in the air, I thought his, his effort and determination and all of that was there. So, yeah, he can have a 7 because we've won and he's worked hard. Onto the bench then, Dobbin. Going to give him a 6.5. Come on. Worked hard, ran round, had an opportunity at the end, I think, with a nice little flick, which was saved, and had that have gone in, that would have been an absolute beauty. But yeah, come on, worked hard. I've got a feeling that Lewis Dobbin is going to get an awful lot more game time over the next couple of weeks or so. I think it was very telling, the fact that Dan Schumer was left on the bench today, whereas Dobbin was brought on. So I don't know, maybe that's just a personal choice. Maybe that's got no indication of what's going to happen, but I just get this inkling that it does. Come on, made himself busy, didn't do an awful lot, but made himself busy. And then Beto, I'll give him a 6. Similarly, come on, made himself busy, but ultimately didn't do an awful lot from it. So there you go. They are my player ratings. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to go and check out the instant match reaction if you haven't already. That is going to do it for this one. Please do leave a like if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new. Everton are through to the 4th round of the FA Cup, where we will face Luton Town. Live game review will be tomorrow, so don't forget to look out for that one as always. But big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you after.